Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
I'll step back from behind here because usually, when you're 5'3", you can't see me behind the podium. I want to start by giving you a little brief background because I wasn't always with the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and I think that's what's important to know. That when I started coming to ISCA and became part of the executive committee, I actually was the district director for physical education and health literacy for Miami-Dade County Public Schools. So my background is as an education administrator, spending 34 years overseeing physical education in the fourth largest school district in the United States, 400 schools, 355,000 students, and I oversaw 650 physical education teachers. So one of the programs that I helped develop in 2004 with the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services Office on Disability was a program called I Can Do It, You Can Do It. And that program was meant for universities, community centers, and schools to provide 60 minutes of physical activity for children with disabilities. It's evidence-based. It was researched by major universities between 2004 and 2008. And what we found is that when you provide opportunity, access, and equity for children with disabilities, they will achieve the 60 minutes of physical activity. So when in Miami-Dade schools, I implemented the program for 13 years. And at the end of my year, before I retired, we had 1,700 students with disabilities earn the President's Active Lifestyle Award. So we know it's a program that works. After retiring, I was asked by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services if I would come to Washington and take that program nationwide. So that's what I'm doing now. And it was a conversation that the Secretary of Health had with the Secretary of Education prior to the release of the Physical Activity Guidelines for Americans, second edition. They made the decision that we're not doing enough in the school setting for physical education and physical activity and sports for children with disabilities. So hence what you're going to see, and the reason I'm going to show you this logo up here, right there, the program is now called I Can Do It. And what I'm here to offer up to anybody that wants is that we would like to see the program go global, and I Can Do It become a brand that you're more than welcome to use. So I want to go on and talk a little bit about the program. So again, the program was developed in 2004. It was part of the 2005 Surgeon General's call to action for persons with disabilities under then Secretary Tommy Thompson. It was implemented in the university, community, and school settings. In 2012, it was moved to the President's Council on Fitness, Sports, and Nutrition. And in 2018, was moved into a new office called the Administration for Community Living, and that's the office that I'm now housed in. So, what's the purpose of the program? And here's where I want to talk a little bit honestly, because it's a good conversation. As I'm traveling around the United States and work with my colleagues that I've worked with throughout my career, I'm asking them, what are you doing for children with disabilities? I read a lot. I read a lot of the national reports. They all say inclusion. And then when I raise my hand and say, what are we doing for inclusion? Really not doing much, but we have inclusion in our reports. And when I talk to my own colleagues, usually the answer is, I'm not comfortable, so I just kind of avoid it. And as a result, what's often happening is children with disabilities are still on the outside looking in. As we work to get physical activity, physical education and sports in schools, what opportunities exist for children with disabilities outside of the school setting, where transportation issues, funding issues is usually a problem for the families where they do have more financial burdens. So, what we're trying to do, and my charge last year was to get the program into 8 states in the United States, which we did, is to provide opportunity, access, and equity for students with disabilities to achieve 60 minutes of accumulated physical activity through the school day. And that's to meet the Physical Activity Guidelines for Americans, second edition. These activities take place in the school environment with support of the community-based organizations. And we look at the school environment as the before, during, and after school program time. When the student is at the school setting, we have community organizations that work with us in the schools. We take the students to community centers. And the accumulation of physical activity, because we know students in the general population are not getting the 60 minutes daily either. But we know for certain, because we've tried to find the research, the CDC, the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, Education educational statistics. There's data on adults, physical activity for adults with disabilities, but not anything for children with disabilities. So once we get this program going, we will be starting a data collection stream to see how we're now moving forward in this space. So the accumulated minutes can be any combination of physical education, adapted physical education, recess, classroom activity breaks, active transport to and from school, extracurricular activity, including club and a variety of sports, Special Olympics, unified sports. We've just partnered with the Paralympics. So think about this for all the different countries out here. What we will be starting through the school environment is a pipeline for students with disabilities that could become Paralympians to work with the Paralympians in their community, with the different programs, and help us identify a pipeline from youth that can move up to become Paralympians representing the United States in our case. But think about this as a model for your countries also. So how the program works, very simply, works on 3 tenets: mentoring, goal setting, and recognition. Now the mentoring part can be the student themselves. We find the most successful is a peer-to-peer mentoring, where a student from the general population works with a student with disability. And when we use that model, I'll be honest, we don't know who gains more from it, whether it's the student with disability or the student from the general population. When they gain an understanding of each other and we watch friendships being formed, they eat lunch together, the child with disability is no longer isolated in the school environment, they're part of the school, depression goes down, health goes up, physical activity goes up, and the school environment changes, and we know that for certain through the school climate that's collected. So the mentors can be the peers, the classroom teachers, the physical education teachers, the physical therapists, the recreational therapists, occupational therapists, anybody that works with the school in the school environment. And we use personnel in the school environment because we know in the United States personnel in the school setting are fingerprinted. And we want to make sure that our most vulnerable student population is safe when we start with the schools and the external partners. Goal setting. We look at the student, we look at the IEPs, that's the individual education plan for students with disabilities, and we look at what the need of the student is. We also collect data on the schools and the students. Well, most of the students across the United States are fitness tested under the FitnessGram, HIT, any of the other programs, IHT that they use, WellNet. But we do fitness test the students with disabilities using the Brockboard, which is the equivalent of FitnessGram, but the activities are modified for individuals with disabilities, so students can be part of the general program. And recognition. What we use to, very simple, we'll see this in this next slide, is the PALA, which is the Present Active Lifestyle Log. How the program works, you participate in physical activity 5 days a week, 60 minutes a day for 8-week intervals, and in our case you earn what's the President's Active Lifestyle Award. And I'll show you the 2 different awards. We got to the point in Miami-Dade where we had so many students that we actually bust them into one site. When we hit 1,000 students earning the award, the Miami Heat, our NBA basketball team, donated the arena, waived the $35,000 rental fee, and we had a big award ceremony at American Airlines Arena. That's our partnerships coming together. For the most part every year, we brought all the students to a school site, gave a big award ceremony, ended with a balloon drop, brought in all the mascots, the university teams, all the professional teams, and the students earned the certificate. We as a district bought the patch, but that's part of our local program. But the 3 things, however you do the recognition, if you choose to adopt it, which we really would like you to do, mentoring, goal setting, and recognition. And I just wanted to make a note. I'm a physical educator. I am not a specialist in adaptive physical education. This is not a curriculum. This is not anybody saying, hey, here's what you should be doing. We have a manual about the program, but this is a strategic plan to ensure that students with disabilities get access and opportunity to 60 minutes a day of physical activity. So when you develop the plan, what we do is we base it on 3 things: a vision, a strategy, and of course the implementation. In the United States, most educational school districts their vision is equity and access, education and opportunity for all. And when we talk about the general education setting, we also want to make sure that's the physical education and physical activity setting. We distribute across all geographic areas, whether it's high income, low income, urban, suburban. This program is available anywhere because it's free, it's voluntary, and we have our information and everything online. And what we do is we ask for the implementation plan is to develop community partnerships. Because most of the time the community agencies during the school day, Monday through Friday, are usually empty. Their facilities are full on the weekends. So when we do our sailing and our kayaking and our paddleboarding, and that's across for every student, we work with the yacht clubs and the sailing centers, and their staff run the programs for us at no cost. And what do we do in exchange? In the summer or winter recess or spring recess when school is out, they get to use our equipment for their camps. That's a partnership. So there could be some funding needs depending where it is. We had one school district where it required that the teachers got a supplement, so they paid the teachers a supplement. But in most cases, it's during the school day, no more work. This is the easiest program I've ever implemented. And throughout my career, I brought in $39 million in grant funds for physical education for Miami-Dade County Public Schools. Data collection, statistical analysis, thanks to the University of Miami School of Medicine, who always ran on statistical analysis. This program does not require that anymore. Very easy. So some examples of how do you get to 60 minutes. We had, for example, one school where they didn't have adapted physical education, so the classroom teacher did 10 minutes of classroom activities, 6 hours throughout the school day. Another school, 7th grade, this is what we got from our first 8 states. Other schools, they participated in Special Olympics. Community members, martial arts came to the school and provided opportunities, classroom activity breaks. The best thing about this program is it's not a one-size-fits-all. Whatever works in your environment is actually what works. This year, by the way, my charge is to get it into 20 additional states, so by June I will oversee the program in 28 states. And next year, it'll be every state in the United States. We are determined that we will provide every opportunity and access for our children with disabilities to get the 60 minutes of physical activity a day. Why the schools? Because that's where the kids are. So for the record keeping, we use, this is the PALA log, and you can see how easy it is. 8 weeks, they have 7 days a week. If the child hits the 60 minutes, all you do is put a check mark. That's it. And if the child does 5 weeks, and of course sometimes students with disabilities are absent, the wheelchair breaks, they can't get to school, you make provisions for that. And we expect that within. But 5 days a week, 8 weeks, and the student earns the PALA certificate. The goal is really to make this a year-long program, but a slow rollout start, you get the kinks out, and then after the first year, it goes year-long. Now, this is our log. You can see that up here, whoops, sorry about that. Up here we have the President's Active Lifestyle, but this kind of log, my recommendation is either use ours or develop your own. Put your own patch up there. I've heard, the last couple of days, I've heard so many great presentations of individual programs that you all are developing. It's the concept that we'd like to see transferred, and of course the use of the I Can Do It logo. But anything else, you can go ahead and decide yourself. So why celebrate? I'm going to ask you, many of you here are young, don't have families yet, but those of you that do have families, usually at the end of the school year, especially in elementary schools, isn't there always an award ceremony? Do your kids come home with a certificate? Anything from most academic, most athletic, best shoes, anything? What do the kids with disabilities in the schools get? Are they even invited to the award ceremony? Well, why not make this a part of your school environment? So awards and recognition are a core tenet of I Can Do It model. Motivate students to reach their full activity for healthy eating and activity goals. Recognize their hard work. And this is every disability, visually impaired, hearing impaired, intellectually impaired, any disability. Recognize the importance of having committed a leading, healthy, and active lifestyle for every child in the school environment. Let's not forget our students with disabilities. And these are the two awards that we have. This is a generic award over here. This is an award every year since we started this in 2004. It's had a different president's signature. What the National Fitness Foundation has done this year is decided to sell this award. And for me, certificate we don't sell. Patches, yes, it takes a little bit more. So our office for the schools that are implementing the program are buying that award, but some of the schools are using this one, which has no signature, or they're developing their own. But the main thing is the concept of the program. And of course, we celebrate the students. And at the end of the year ceremony, what we've always had the opportunity to do is ask the teachers to take pictures of the kids throughout the school year, and then they send them to me and we put them to music. So in a second, when I give the sign, I want you to just recognize that every single student in this video that you're about to see is a student with a disability. You'll see our partners, the students that are wearing the numbers. That's the Junior Orange Bowl committee that runs the sports ability games for us every year. We usually also do a second video and that we honor the mentors, but because we always want to honor the teachers and everybody else in the school environment that works with our students with disabilities. But my last year there, this was the last video that we did, and I just wanted to show you the possibilities. And you can see it's still called I Can Do It, You Can Do It. Last year was just changed to I Can Do It, so that's the new logo. But don't think of what a child with a disability cannot do. Think about what a child with a disability can do. And then when the child says, I can do it, I can do it, that's when we know that we've hooked the child on to physical activity for life. So at this time, please show the video.
You're broken down and tired of living life on the merry-go-round, and you can't find a fighter, but I see it in you, so we gon' walk it out. Ooh, mountains, we gon' walk it out, and ooh.
Just provide access, opportunity, and equity. And folks, a very heartfelt thank you for everything. Thank you.